At my sister Celine's wedding reception, her new mother-in-law raised her glass and cheerfully proclaimed, "Don't worry, she won't last. She's been divorced twice." Celine froze, laughter fading as if struck hard. Her smile disappeared. She glanced at her husband Nathan, who remained silent, grinning as if it were a joke. I stood a few feet away, fists clenched. My sister had endured 2 painful divorces. This day was meant to be her new beginning, her moment. And that woman, Dolores, shattered her like she was nothing. I held my tongue for the moment. Then, from the back of the room, a woman stood up, calm and composed. She appeared to be in her late 30s, dressed in a slate blue dress that seemed out of place, as if she hadn't intended to come. She raised her phone and declared, "Actually, I'm his first wife, and you all need to see this." Everyone turned. The music halted. Chairs scraped. Nathan went white. That's when everything unraveled. I'm Kay, 35, a high school English teacher, more of an observer than a participant. I'm the older sister who quietly fixes things from the sidelines. I avoid drama. But that day at my sister's wedding, I stood on the brink of something that would change everything. Celine, my younger sister, had always been the vibrant one with a laugh that drew smiles from strangers. She believed in second chances, even when most would have given up. At 32, she walked down the aisle for the 3rd time, wearing a dress that sparkled in the afternoon sun, her eyes full of hope. I dared not voice my doubts. We stood on a sunlit vineyard north of Napa, rows of vines behind the ceremony site, the scent of wild lavender in the air, candles flickering in glass jars. It was stunning, a hand-crafted wedding that felt cinematic. Yet the tension in my stomach prevented me from enjoying it. I told myself it was just nerves. Weddings evoke emotions. I had no right to question her choice. Nathan, her groom, was the kind of man who commanded a room. Tall, clean-cut, with a polished smile upon first meeting. Him, I thought he was almost too perfect. He held eye contact a beat too long and touched your arm while speaking. It wasn't rude, just calculated. Still, Celine adored him, claiming he made her feel seen again. After 2 failed marriages, one to a narcissist and another to a man who vanished without a word, she said Nathan provided safety. Our parents were relieved. Our mom, Mara, cried when Celine shared the proposal. She admitted she hadn't seen that spark in Celine's eyes since college. Our dad, James, reacted differently. He remained silent, nodded once, and changed the subject. That's just how he was. When he distrusted something, he bottled it up until it exploded. He never liked Nathan. I think he sensed what we overlooked. The weeks leading to the wedding blurred by. Celine immersed herself in planning as if her life depended on it. Every napkin ring and flower petal had to be flawless. She wanted this one to feel permanent, to avoid looking back with regret. As maid of honor, I supported her through dress fittings, wine tastings, vendor calls, and late-night tears when she wondered, what if I'm the problem? I consistently reassured her. No one who loves as deeply as she does is the problem. On the wedding morning, I found her alone in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting her earrings with shaky fingers. She asked, "Do you think I deserve this?" I replied, "More than anyone I know," and I truly meant it. She was anxious, but it felt like the good kind associated with new beginnings. I helped her into her dress, laced up the back, and we laughed about the absurdity of the wedding industry. For a moment it felt light. I wished we could look back on this day with warmth. The ceremony unfolded smoothly, vows exchanged, applause and tears filling the air, glasses clinking. The photos were stunning, the sun dipping just enough to bathe everyone in golden light. If someone had paused the moment, it would have seemed like the start of a love story. But things changed at the reception. It began subtly with a comment from Dolores, Nathan's mother, while we lined up for photos. She leaned in and whispered, "Third time's the charm, right?" I forced a laugh, uncertain how to react. Her tone was light, but her eyes were sharp. my first red flag. Yet Selene looked joyous, glowing, her hand never leaving Nathan's arm. I kept telling myself not to ruin the moment by overthinking it. People say awkward things at weddings, emotions run high. Not every comment carries sinister intent. I have no idea what lurked behind her smile or what Nathan concealed behind his. Then came the toast at the reception, the silence, the woman in the blue dress at the back. I thought I understood our story. It felt like Selene's redemption arc. But weddings reveal buried truths. Once the truth stood up and spoke, there was no turning back. The reception was lively. The sun set behind the hills, casting a soft glow over the vineyard with light strung between oak trees. Music played, wine flowed, and the atmosphere buzzed with warmth, as if everyone felt they were celebrating something good. Selene and Nathan sat at the sweetheart table, leaning into each other, candlelight illuminating their faces. She looked stunning, relieved, as if she had finally escaped something painful. I watched from our family's table, drink in hand, with a knot in my stomach I couldn't quite place. The evening felt overly staged, too perfect. Nathan stayed by her side. Dolores moved through the crowd like she was hosting a separate party, offering stiff hugs and compliments that brushed the surface. When she approached the microphone for her toast, I braced myself. She raised her glass, beaming at the room with the confidence of someone who expected to be the loudest voice. "I want to express how happy I am to welcome Selene into our family," she began, her voice rehearsed. "It takes real courage to walk down that aisle more than once. And well, you've certainly done that." Laughter followed, polite but uncomfortable. Selene tensed, yet kept smiling. Nathan placed a hand on her leg beneath the table. Dolores continued, "I always say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Third time's the charm, right? Oh, don't worry, sweetie. You probably won't last, but that's okay. You've been divorced twice already. You know how this goes." The room fell silent. Selene halted her breath. Her face fell, lips parting slightly, as if struggling to form a response but finding no words. She neither cried nor shouted, simply stared at Dolores, trying to comprehend what had been said in front of 100 people. My mother gasped audibly. My father sat up straighter, fists clenching on the table. I felt the tension rise in my chest, sharp and hot. I glanced at Nathan. He wasn't laughing, but wasn't shocked either, merely staring ahead, jaw clenched, as if this weren't the first time his mother had embarrassed someone he cared about. Selene's hand moved to her lap, fingers digging into her dress fabric. She remained silent. I yearned to stand up, to say something that would make this woman sit down and shut her mouth. But I felt frozen, just like Selene. Dolores's words were casual and dismissive, implying my sister's past rendered her unworthy of this moment. Before anyone else could react, a voice erupted from the back of the room. "Actually, she's not the one you should be worried about." Everyone turned. A woman stood up from one of the back rows. She appeared composed, calm, but her eyes locked onto Nathan like a spotlight. Holding up her phone, she introduced herself. "I'm Laya, and I'm his first wife." Shock rippled through the guests. Murmurs rose like a tide. Some turned to Nathan for an explanation, but he was frozen, pale. His mouth opened, but no words emerged. Dolores stepped back, visibly puzzled. "What is this?" she snapped. Laya moved forward, holding her phone higher. "This is a copy of our marriage certificate. And this," she added, tapping the screen, "is a photo of us from last summer because he never filed for divorce." Selene looked like she'd been knocked out of her body, staring blankly ahead, blinking slowly, her mouth tightening in disbelief and devastation. Nathan finally stirred. "Laya, stop. Not here." But she pressed on. "You never told her you lied to her, just like you lied to me." I stood and approached Selene, gently touching her shoulder. She didn't flinch. Her face was stone. That was when the room shifted. The celebration evaporated, replaced by a wave of whispers and questioning glances. Dolores's confidence dissolved. Nathan appeared trapped. Selene looked as if she'd just witnessed her future disintegrate, in real time. I knew this wedding had abruptly ended in a way none of us anticipated. I stood beside Selin, my hand on her shoulder, waiting for her to react, to breathe, to do anything. But she remained motionless, staring at Laya, attempting to comprehend the moment, as if she were hallucinating. Her face turned pale, the glow that had accompanied her all day vanished, replaced by a stillness I'd only seen once before, when she signed the divorce papers from her first husband. Laya held her, phone steady. "You deserve to know the truth," she said, looking directly at Selin. "I didn't come here to humiliate you. I came because someone needed to stop him from doing this again." The guests were frozen, uncertain whether to sit or stand, stay or flee. The music had ceased. The atmosphere shifted. I felt heat rise at the back of my neck, that electric tension when people pretend they're still at a party but know they're witnessing something fall apart. Nathan finally stepped, forward expressionless, but his eyes darted between Selin and Laya. "Selin, let me explain," he said, voice low and almost rehearsed. "It's not what it looks like." Selin blinked once, then again. Slowly she turned her head toward him. "You're still married," she stated calmly, her words slicing through the air. "She's your wife." Nathan shook his head. "It's complicated. I meant to file. We've been separated for years. We're not together. You have to believe me." "Then why did you lie?" she asked. He hesitated. "I didn't want to lose you," he confessed. For a fleeting second I saw regret flicker in his expression, perhaps the fear of consequences catching up to him. Laya stepped forward. "I gave him the chance to tell you. I begged him to be honest before your wedding. I thought he would do the right thing, but he didn't. He told me he needed the marriage to happen, that you were his fresh start." Selene exhaled slowly, as if trying to release a weight on her chest. She reached up to unclip the veil from her hair, hands trembling. She placed it gently on the table in front of her. Dolores, who had been silent, finally interjected. "This is absurd," she said, her voice sharp and defensive. "You let that woman come here and ruin my son's wedding? What kind of person does that?" Selin turned her gaze toward her. "You said I wouldn't last, that I've been divorced twice. But your son isn't just a liar, he's a married liar. And you," she pointed calmly, "mocked me before you even knew the truth. I guess now you don't have to worry about whether I'll last. I won't." Dolores opened her mouth to respond, but Selin had already turned back to Nathan. "Hey, you let me walk down that aisle believing I was your future," she said, voice rising. "You looked me in the eye and made promises meant for someone else. You allowed your mother to belittle me while you stood there silently." Nathan reached for her hand, but she recoiled instantly. "I need to go," she whispered almost to herself. I stepped closer and nodded. "We're leaving," I declared. Selin rose slowly, her legs shaky but upright. She straightened her back, took a breath, and began walking toward the tent's edge, where the cars were parked. Guests parted as we passed, whispering, unsure if they should speak. No one attempted to stop her. No one defended him, not even Dolores. As we moved through the crowd, Laya followed for a few steps, reaching into her purse, pulling out a folded envelope and handing it to Selin. "This is everything," she said. "Dates, emails, copies of the paperwork. I don't want anything from him. I just thought you should know exactly what he's been hiding." Selin accepted it without a word, holding it like a broken piece of something she no longer needed to carry. Once we reached the car, she slid into the passenger seat, staring out the window. I sat beside her, started the engine, and waited. Finally she spoke. "It's not that he lied. It's that he knew I would have stayed if he had just been honest." That was the first time she cried. And that's when I realized this wasn't just the end of a wedding. It was the start of something she should have had years ago, a chance to walk away before losing herself again. We lingered in the parked car outside the vineyard for a long time, silent. The laughter and music remained absent behind us. The celebration had ended. Any joy the day promised was gone. Selin stared at Her reflection in the passenger side window. Her wedding makeup was still perfect, but her eyes were hollow. She didn't wipe away her tears. She let them rest there as if they belonged. I wanted to say something comforting, but there was nothing I could offer to make this right. I couldn't undo what had happened. All I could do was remain still beside her as it sank in. Eventually, she opened the envelope Leah had given her. Inside was a neatly stapled packet of documents, a marriage certificate, a signed lease agreement from a joint apartment in Seattle, recent emails, and, most damning of all, a photo of Nathan and Leah at a barbecue dated just 7 months earlier. He had his arm around her waist, both smiling as if nothing was broken. Selene held the photo in both hands. "I believed him," she said softly. "Every word. I thought I finally found someone who didn't see me as disposable." "You're not," I quickly replied. She shook her head. "But I acted like I was. That's what I hate most. I saw the signs. I felt it, the rush, the way his stories didn't always match. His mom was awful to me from the start, and I kept convincing myself she would come around. I ignored everything. I just wanted to believe this time would be different." I reached over and took the photo from her, sliding it back into the envelope. "You were hopeful. That's not a crime. It doesn't make you weak." She turned to me, finally making eye contact. "It makes me tired. I don't want to be brave like this anymore. I just want peace." "You'll get it," I assured her. "But first you need to go back in there and say what you need to say. Not for him, but for you." Selene remained silent, gazing at the vineyard behind us, then at her dress. "It's too late." "No," I insisted. "You still have your voice. That's not nothing." 10 minutes later, we walked back into the reception. Guests were scattered, some leaving quietly, pretending not to notice us, others watching us like a train wreck they couldn't ignore. Nathan sat alone at the sweetheart table, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His mother stood beside him, arms crossed, whispering something in his ear. Leah had moved to the side of the tent, looking at us and giving a small nod, a silent message that her part was over. Selene didn't hesitate. She went straight to the microphone at the center of the tent, her heels clicking against the wooden floor, sharp and deliberate. The noise faded instantly. She paused for a moment, then began. "I want to thank everyone who came today. Many of you traveled across the country to be here. You showed up for me, cheered for me, believed this was a beginning, and so did I." She glanced at Nathan, then back at the crowd. But the truth is, it wasn't. It was a performance. I was standing beside a man who lied to me every day we were together, a man who allowed his mother to humiliate me in front of you all while staying silent, a man who promised me a future while still tied to his past. Gasps were absent, no interruptions, just the sound of her voice, steady and rising. "I'm not ashamed of being divorced. I'm not ashamed of loving too deeply. But I am done letting others define my worth. So I won't be anyone's third chance. I won't be someone's cover story. I'm walking away, and I am not broken." She returned the microphone to the stand, approached the sweetheart table, and removed her ring, placing it neatly beside her untouched plate. Nathan stood. "Selene, wait." She turned to him, and for the first time that day she smiled. But it wasn't soft. It was final. "You had your chance. Now you can sit in the truth you tried to bury." With that, she turned and walked out. I followed, heart racing, proud in a way that felt larger than words. People didn't clap. They didn't need to. The silence was heavy, the kind that follows a reckoning. That day was meant to mark the start of her marriage. Instead, it became the moment she reclaimed herself. We didn't return home that night. After leaving the vineyard, Selene and I checked into a small boutique hotel 20 minutes away. She didn't want to answer questions or explain anything. She sought quiet and space. Once in the room, she removed her dress and sat on the bed, edge in a tank top and leggings, bare feet on the carpet, her makeup still somewhat intact. She appeared exhausted, as if she'd aged 10 years in a single day. But there was something different in her eyes, something settled and clear. We remained silent for a long time. I sat across from her, waiting. Finally, she said, "I don't feel angry. I thought I would, but I don't." "What do you feel?" I asked. "Free," she replied. "That's the word that keeps coming to me." We ordered food, but barely touched it. After her shower, she emerged with wet hair, wrapped in a towel, and smiled for the first time since everything collapsed. "You know what's strange?" she said. "I feel lighter." The next morning she called our parents and shared everything. My mom cried. My dad didn't say much, but I could hear the steady breath on the other end, knowing he was holding back everything he wanted to express. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't need to. In the following weeks, Celine filed for an annulment. Her lawyer acted swiftly, with Leah already providing copies of all the necessary documents. There were no lengthy court battles or desperate pleas for explanations. Nathan didn't contest it. He signed the paperwork quietly and vanished from her life. His mother, Dolores, didn't reach out once. Celine took a break from social media, severing ties with everyone who tried to gossip about her situation. She kept only those who offered support without prying for details. She returned the wedding gifts and donated her dress. Then she allowed herself to rest. For months she granted herself the permission to avoid chasing closure. She didn't seek new love or distractions. Instead, she started therapy, journaling every night, and even picked up an old hobby, pottery, something she loved before her first marriage. She joined a small studio across town, creating things with her hands again. It felt good to make something that didn't need to be perfect. We talked daily, sometimes about trivial things, other times about everything that mattered. One night, 6 months later, she arrived with a bottle of wine and a bright smile. "I met someone," she announced. "I didn't panic or rush to protect her. I simply listened." His name was Elias, a quiet and kind widower. He didn't rush her or try to rescue her. He just showed up week after week, allowing her to be exactly who she was. He asked questions, genuinely waited for answers, and didn't flinch at her past. He just held space for it. I met him 3 weeks later and liked him immediately. He didn't charm the room like Nathan. He didn't dominate the conversation. He helped my mom carry dishes to the kitchen, asked my dad about his garden, and brought Celine tea without her asking. This time it felt real. Celine appeared grounded, not high on hope or desperate to prove anything, just steady. Later she told me she didn't feel like she was starting over. "I'm just continuing," she said. "This is me moving forward. No more reinventions, no more fixing broken people. Just walking my own path. And if someone wants to walk with me, great. But I'm not dragging anyone ever again." I think about that often. In hindsight, I used to wish I could have spoken up sooner. I sometimes wondered if I could have stopped the wedding before it happened. But the truth is, she had to discover it for herself. She needed to hear those hurtful words, confront that betrayal, and walk away on her own terms. That moment when she stood before that room and reclaimed her voice, that was the real beginning. Not the wedding, not the dress, not the ring. It was the moment she chose herself. Over the story she thought she was meant to live, watching her do that was the most beautiful part of the entire day. If this story resonated with you or reminded you of someone who's been through something similar, share it with them. Sometimes all it takes is one voice to help someone find their own. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed someone walk away from something they believed was love? Or perhaps you've had to do it yourself? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. And if stories like this speak to you, if you believe in truth, strength, and second chances, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.